So thank you all for joining us. The session is going to be in two parts. I'm going to quickly run through my slides, and I have three graduate students who will share different experiences on how they went about finding or contacting their PIs. And we'll also have a sample of someone who never contacted any PIs. I was able to go through school, but that would happen. The Q&A would happen after um, after my own presentation. So today we're just quickly going to go through how to find a PI. I know we're very familiar with this. There are a lot of resources out there, but this session is timely because this is the right time to start, and also it's also needed. So we just don't repeat the bad habits that we do every time, talk a little bit about the role of a PI. A lot of graduate students ask me what is PI. They typically don't even know what PI is. I think we just use the word PI. Like, what's PI? I hear that a lot. What's a PI? I'm like, I'm so sorry if I'm asking a stupid question. Like, nope, you're definitely not asking a stupid question. You need to know what a PI is. Importance of finding a professor, preparing strong communication materials. And of course, we're going to go through the digital tools and platform that we can use to find a PI. So with a PI, we use the word PI a lot, principal investigator. And if you go on principal investigator, you might find it as maybe even somebody who works in the police, but please, principal investigator is a faculty member that leads a research group or a lab that you want to reach out to. Most of the time, actually, PIs actually will control the grants or control a particular grant they've gotten from a school or from a research institute or from a body. But a lot of the time, PIs are actually very powerful. A PI can offer you funding without even graduate school knowing. They decide who they admit or who they don't admit. I have a case scenario of a student who actually got funded by PI and now had to apply to graduate school. And graduate school now said, oh, our policy is that you need to write GRE and TOEFL. And you had never written of the exams and you had to take GRE and TOEFL in 1 week. I'm not kidding you, this is a true life story. Because yes, you had an offer from a PI, but graduate school had their own requirements for students who would be admissible into the graduate school program. So yes, and sometimes a PI can be an advisor or supervisor in graduate school. But I know most importantly, most of the times we hear PI are very common within the STEM field, especially the PhD programs. And why does it matter for us to have a PI? Why does it really matter to have a PI? Most graduate students actually will require it, especially if you're looking for funding and if you're really in the research that aligns with the professor that is working on a particular research interest that you're interested in. And for me, it also just enhances a lot of collaboration because you work with the PI, you're not the only one working there. There are other people that are working with this particular PI, postdocs, senior colleagues in the lab, and things like that. So for me, it's also a learning process. You're building your professional network, and at the same time, you're also getting mentorship. And remember, you're getting mentorship and guidance, but you're going to give that back at the end of the day. Maybe by the time you grow in the lab, your second year, your third year, before you know, by the fifth year, you're now also a senior colleague in the lab. So when do you need a PI? You need a PI actually all through this whole journey. Before applying to graduate school, you need a PI. After the admission, you need a PI. And for me, you only just need to know how that works. So most of the time, some schools require to have a PI even before you even start the whole application process. Some schools will tell you you need to have a professor who's willing to supervise you. Some schools are very, very amazing. They're like, you don't need any PI, you're admitted. Then you go through the rotation to check out all the professors or all the labs, and you now decide which professor you want to work with. I think that's actually very common, and I know it's actually more common actually in Purdue University. You have the privilege of looking around first. You now finally decide, which PI you want to work with. So always ask students to please check with the school, check the school's program, check the admission process, what is required, if it's going to be before you're applying or after you're applying to the school. So graduate students just need to do a lot of research work. I tell people there's a process. It's not a process where you're looking for people to do things for you. Graduate students in this age and time are just used to always looking for help, oh, can somebody send me this? Can somebody give me that? This journey is not a journey where somebody's helping you find things. You need to find things yourself. identify your own research interest with an S. I didn't say with interest, with an S. So you ability to be able to, you need to be flexible. Yeah, to say, okay, fine, I'm an electrical and engineering major. I'm interested in this. I'm also interested in that. And I still mind this as well. So you need to actually be very flexible with that. Do your research, shortlist universities that you want to reach out to, the professors you want to reach out to. So for me, it's even the professors you're looking for, another university. See, when you find the professors, then you now say, oh, this professor is at this university. So please make sure that the department, the faculty actually matches what you're looking for. Review recent publication, read. You need to read a lot. We don't like reading in Nigeria. I think reading is just one of the culture we typically do not have. But in this process, you really need to read a lot of publications, article, research projects. So you know what's trending in your research field. So you need to search. You need to keep searching university websites, lab website, LinkedIn, academic network, research gates, Google Scholar. You have to keep researching. How to evaluate a potential PI, looking at this PI, if I think maybe I should reach out to this PI or not. You need to do a lot of research, ask yourself a lot of questions. Do the project actually match what I'm looking at? Can I survive this research interest even in the midst of frustration? Because you need to love something to be able to wake up every morning for 5 years to keep doing the same thing. It has to be something that you really are passionate about. Check the lab size, diversity in the lab, recent publication, check out all those things. What's the mentoring style in the department and things like that. And if the P actually has funding, did they have any grants listed that they are currently working on? It's so very important you check out all these things before you decide if this PI is the right person to reach out to at this point in time. I think for me, this is the point where we all kind of miss it when we're reaching out to PIs. A lot of the time, our emails are not professional. We're reaching out to PIs with the way I sometimes when I even look at emails that we get, we're not PIs, but just an advising office, and we have a general email that people send emails to. I sometimes see some emails and I cringe in my head, like, oh my God, this is a graduate student, and you're sending this type of email out. Like we really need to just sit down as we pick up our laptops and we're sending emails. You need to be at that mindset of your emails at every time need to be professional, starting from your email address. Please, let's start from that. You're applying to graduate school and your email address is dog419@yahoo.com. Like, no, you should have an email address that is so professional. So if it's shagadebayo@gmail.com or adebayofa@gmail.com, it has to be something very professional. So you need to start even from that email address itself to make your email address need to make sense in the first place, really. And I don't want to be seeing email addresses like Shade234180 Jackpot, something like that at yahoo.com. Like all those kind of emails, you might not really have anything against you. It might honestly be an honest email. Maybe even it was even Gmail that recommended that email address for you. But you need to start thinking professionally in terms of what your email looks like, your image looks like. Everything is virtual. And I tell people that if it's virtual, there's so many things people read behind the scene, when you're not there. Even reading that email, the paragraphing, the subject line, it gives a lot of vibes, for the person receiving it. So because of that, we're going to go through key email etiquette. Your email has to be very clear. Literally, clean up your English. Please use Grammarly, clean that English up to make sure your email is very clear. Proper greeting, not hi, hello, or you write all the things you want to ask, you put them in the subject line. We see that a lot. A graduate sends an email to Abuja EducationUSA, and everything you're saying is on the subject line. It doesn't make sense. So brief self-introduction is very, very important. Demonstrate your genuine interests, and particularly and be very, very genuine. So, like, for example, you've read about Professor Jim, and you're telling Professor Jim, like, oh, I'm particularly interested in this paper or this thing that you just did this X point in time. It shows how genuine that your email to that professor is. You're personalizing the email. Please pull out the research interest, your experience. You need to market yourself. I tell people that is you marketing yourself. What have you done? What are you bringing to the table? And you need to state clearly your purpose. Why are you sending this email? You know, I'm in the process of applying for a PhD program in your lab or whatever that is, or I'm interested in this research, or like whatever that is, just state it clearly. That's what you're looking for. Be concise. Let your email be readable. Please be timely and make sure you do follow up. I always tell people that's email etiquette. And again, talking about follow up, Nigeria, we're like 6 hours ahead of the US. So you need to be time conscious when you're also sending email. Be timely in requesting, like you requesting an email like in a PI that just started school, maybe like mid of October, and you're just sending a cold email. I just feel those are not timely emails. This actually now is actually timely email. This is summer. This is time to looking forward to next academic year. And it's like, oh, reaching out and asking how will XYZ work. And apart from that, when you're also sending emails, look at what is the time in America now? What is the time in California? So I need to send email at the time that you know that, oh, it's not off office hours, time that you know that the emails comes in and most likely the professor is at work and can actually check that email or read that email. So let's put those at the back of our minds. All right, so I kind of tried to draft out some sample bad code emails that you would see. Hi, hello, literally dots are terrible. All the I's are like small letters. I'm like, oh my goodness, let me know ASAP. Very rude. If I'm the one reading this email, I'm just telling you the kind of sense of judgment I give this person. Well, let me know ASAP. In my mind, I'm like, are you for real? Who do you think you are, DG, that you tell me to respond to you ASAP? Like, so I'm reading this email. I'm like, are you for real? This grad student. And for me, it might just be delete or an email that I will not even respond to. I would definitely never respond to this type of email. Honestly, even on EducationUSA email, I send an email like this. I'm honestly, I will not respond to it. I'm being honest about it. So that's a sample of a bad code email. And I also have a sample of a code email. I think I got this from University of Kentucky. This was a sample that University of Kentucky pulled out. Like, dear professor, like the professor's name. It's just very, very personal. Like, we're talking about you introducing yourself. My name is this, what you're doing currently, and you've explained to the PI that you've just gone through the list of the faculty in this department and you've seen XYZ, although this is what I'm currently doing in this university, but I hope to do XYZ with you. And the person was able to talk about, how he participated in XYZ, and I have attached my resume for more details. So in case the professor needs to check the person out, here's my resume for you to check out. First, cold email out. I really feel this actually makes sense, And I like the fact that the person actually added that if possible, I'd like to meet you in person to talk more about your research. Very important. So like a call for action, like it's very, very important we actually put those, or if something you can mention, like if they have time for a Zoom meeting, you're available to have a Zoom conversation with them, blah, 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 blah. So this is another very good sample of a very good cold email where I like the subject line, I'm a prospective PhD student and I'm interested in XYZ, and introduce yourself, tell them what you've done, talk about my own professor that I worked under, what I'm really working on at this point in time. And you're asking the PI a lot of questions about, you're writing to inquire about PhD positions. You can ask about money. Do you have money to fund me next year? No, you asked about PhD positions for the next academic year. And you've literally talked about the work that they're doing right there in the department at this point in time, how excited you are, and you're asking the professor will be available for like a 20-minute Zoom call for you guys to discuss potential openings, in this group. And at the same time, you're telling the professor, you know what, I'm sharing my resume, my transcripts, and if you have a research proposal in advance, let the professor see that to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I always tell people you need to market yourself. Very important that you market yourself. And thank you. Be kind, be nice. Thank them, for taking our time to read this. Look forward to possibility of contributing to the team's pioneering research. Talking about that, I was talking to a PI who happens to be somebody that is very family to me, and I'll just reaching out to her about also you get all these emails because your name and your email address is on the school's website. And she says to me, like, every time she gets cold email, they are so annoying that she just clicks on the delete button. And in our career, in the last 5 years, she said she's actually just only one person that have actually really cold emailed her, that she literally picked up the phone and called the graduate student. Like, you know what, I am really so damn interested in this that you're doing. This is what I am doing, and I'm very, very interested. But only done that once. So it just shows the quality of emails that we write to people that makes PIs don't respond to us, very important. So we just need to really sit down and craft those emails that are just genuine. Me, that's what I tell people, like, just if you're genuine, people will read your emails and they will actually get back to you. Do's and don'ts, this we rant this every time, be specific, be concise, be respectful, personalize each of your emails. I know we always try to like rewrite emails as much as possible, but please just look through the emails again, even though they're your email. But don't forget to say, instead of you saying, oh, Professor Oguche, and you're not saying Professor Linus, but you actually meant to say Professor Oguche. So please make sure that you just, even when you're copying and pasting your personal emails, clean them up as much as you can. Don't send mass or generic emails. Do not ask for funding in your first emails. Please don't do that. And please do not ignore if there's any kind of application process that the lab or instructions that they're giving to you that is clearly written on the website. Please do not ignore those instructions. Things that you need to put together as you're trying to send a cold email. Make sure your resume is cleaned and dusted. Academic focus resume, please, not the work resume. Transcripts, at least have a student copy of the transcript. It's very, very helpful. Have a research in your head. If there's a way you can put a research proposal together, most US schools might not require it, but some schools might actually, if you have that put together, cleaned out, a professor might actually be so interested to have that sent to him. And if you have your statement of purpose ready, it's actually very, very, very important that you have that, because I've seen when PIs have actually asked prospective graduate students to send in their statement of purpose. Yep. Follow-up etiquettes. I always tell people, you send that first email, let it go. A good follow-up is at least 10 days, 10 work days. I tell people 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you can do a follow-up. And if you don't get any kind of response, nice follow-up. You can reach out to current student in that department or reach out to graduate coordinator to say, hey, I'm trying to reach out to this PI, you don't know if they'll be recruiting for the next academic year. They might have some advice for you. I've seen graduate coordinators come back to say, oh, that particular PI actually doesn't have funding for this next academic year, or that particular PI is actually retiring and will not be recruiting again, for the next academic year. So you can actually get some inside information, either from current student or from graduate coordinator, that can give you an insight of, oh, you know what, oh, let me move on. This PI definitely is not for me at this point in time. Let me move on to another professor. So I tell people, be patient, be persistent, but be professional at the same time. So if you don't get any response after your follow-up email, I would always say that's the reason why we're applying to several PIs. That's the reason why you're not just applying to only one school or send an email to only one PI. You definitely need to reach out to as many PIs as you can and just await the ones you get a response from. And I've seen a lot of generic response from PI that will say, oh, yes, you can go ahead and apply. You didn't really mean it, but I think sometimes our graduate students take that as maybe they really mean it, that they're going to admit you. The PI might just feel that, you know what, here you're actually a good candidate, go ahead and apply, and let's get to the table and do the review process. Oh, I've been emailing this PI, and the PI told me to honestly go and apply. I was thinking it was going to take me. Yeah, so them telling you to go apply does not actually mean that they're going to take you. All right, some tips to start, some tips to success is for you to start early as much as possible. Please keep a spreadsheet of every peer that you've reached out to. What the date you reach out, if there was any response, please, it's very important. Have a spreadsheet. Just have a spreadsheet of all the PIs you reach out to. So you don't start repeating yourself that, oh, maybe you sent an email before a month ago and you didn't realize that you actually sent an email to a PI before you send it again. Just have a spreadsheet. It just helps with your mental brain and mental analysis. And if you get the feedback, please also put it in that spreadsheet. It's very, very important. Network, join virtual events, join webinars, attend virtual conferences that you can attend as much as you can. Common mistakes to avoid: copying the same email to multiple professors is silly, especially if it's the same school. professors talk among each other. So please don't let them mock you like, oh, by the way, I got this thing from this Nigerian student. And now that professor is saying, oh, I got the same email as well, you know. Or I hate the fact that you send an email to a professor and the professor is immediately responding to you. By the way, I really don't work in this field. This is not my field of study. I just cringe. I'm like, oh my God, that means this student did not really check out this professor before you sent out that email. Do not send out too much English. So I tell English professors, too much English. Please, you don't need that. You know, make sure you proofread your emails and your documents and you're sending to this as much as you can. Places that you should be instead of going to Instagram and going to Facebook and watching soccer, please, you can use Google Scholar to find PIs. You can use ResearchGate to find PIs research that actually aligns with you. So that means on each of this profile, on each of this platform, you need to have your own profile. So you need to sign in, you know, have a login detail, sign in, have a LinkedIn account, because if you don't have those accounts, if you don't follow the right people, follow the right school, follow the right PIs, you're not going to get information literally. So you need to be on these digital platforms, you know, to find, you know, information, find the right academic databases, you know, academic network site. You just need to be on this web platforms maybe to find something that makes sense. Yeah, the org actually also helps with connecting researchers, research to researchers. Twitter helps you with networking and information as much as we can. Even like I tell people with Twitter, you also need to learn to be able to sieve, you know, what is important, what is not important. I tell people that the EducationUSA platform is also a good place for navigating admission progress and also university connections. For example, like every week we actually bring up a school. We like a school every week. And honestly, this cohort, I have more than 6 of our graduate students who actually got connected from attending one of those our weekly webinars. In short, one was so fast. I think it was the week we highlighted, I think it was Richardson of Technology, actually, at one of the programs that were highlighted. In 2 weeks, literally after that event, this graduate student reached out to this school to say, hey, I was at the webinar, I told you this, I did this, and that. This place is fully funded. And it's even a management program, fully funded to go into a management program this fall 2026 by just attending one of the EducationUSA programs that we organize every week. Summary, finding the PI is actually for me is very key in this application process. It can be very frustrating. I tell you, people have like reach out to 50, 80, 100 PIs and they will not get any response, you know, but you have to keep pushing, you have to keep going. You know, people have done a lot of research. You have to do a lot of research. You have to communicate professionally. You have to stay organized as much as possible. You have to respect for people's time as much as you can. And I think for me, that's one thing we need to learn more. You need to respect for people's time. And you also don't want to be a pest at the same time. You know, getting emails from somebody every day, every minute, every second can actually be very, very irritating. So you would not want to get to that point where you become actually Americans might even think it as they take it very personal. Like it might even be it's kind of a red flag for them, like being obsessed, and they might start wondering if you're actually a good fit for you to be in that space. Please follow us on social media, and that's our email address if you need to reach out with us. Is EducationUSA Nigeria. But at this point, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have our graduate students take up a couple of questions, just sharing his or our own experience at this point in time. I see Obasanjo here, so I'm going to start with him, pending with the rest of the slide. Obasanjo, can you hear me? Before we take questions, let me just take you through it.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, man. I can
Hi,
hear
good
you.
afternoon. Hi, how are you? So, starting with you, how did you identify the right P? As number one, by the way, Obasanjo, you want to introduce yourself because I really want to highlight the fact that you're a non-STEM major person. So it's not only STEM majors that reach out to PIs. So I really want to emphasize that. So how did you identify the right PIs or labs that you need to contact? You know.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, my network is unstable. It's raining here. So should in case you lose me,
Okay.
just let me know. So how do I identify the right PI? So what I did for mine that worked was After identifying a school, after my inquiry email that shows positive that I could apply to the school, I go to the department website and the course I'm applying to and start looking at each PI. I look at each PI to know which one aligns with my work, particularly. Some of those school websites do have a filter button where you can filter by research, but a lot of them do not have that. So sometimes you need to look through 10 PIs before identifying the one that really aligns with your research work, or looking at keywords. Some schools do put keywords in which they are focused on, and this will help you do that. So I did deep research going into each of the school websites, the departments, and looking deeply to identify which one aligns with me. And after identifying that, then I now go in deeper to read about their papers.
All right. Awesome. Esther, you want to share your own experience? So Esther is a STEM major person. So let her talk to us about how she was able to identify the right PIs or the lab to reach out to.
Okay, ma. So my own experience is similar to that of Obasanjo too. I also research and the universities. First of all, I have a list of schools I will want to attend. Then I went to the department website, the faculty page, and to learn more about the faculty members, and also find out faculty members that are doing research that are similar to what I want to do. So after that, I now read about their paper, because most PIs, they usually have lots of projects. Most of them, some projects you see on their site, they are no longer doing it again. So it will be best you read their current paper to have an idea of what they are currently doing. So that will give you an insight on what the professor is currently doing. So that was what I did. I also read their papers and then sent them a cold email.
So that will lead me to my next question. What did you include in your initial email to the PI? Any of you can go first.
All right, so for the initial email I sent, I first of all introduced myself. I talk about my background, my research experience, and I also talk about my research interests and how it aligns with what the PI is doing. And I also usually used to mention one or two papers that aligns with what I want to do. Then I end the email by attaching my CV and transcripts. I usually have one PDF that I combine both my CV and my transcript. Then I usually ask the PI for an opportunity to talk with him via Zoom. Yeah, and I always keep my messages very concise. All the code emails I send, they were usually less than 200 words. Yeah, they are usually very concise.
Yeah, they typically would tell you 150 to 200 words, actually.
Yeah.
That's the standard practice.
And the subject line too should be clear, ma. So most times I use prospective graduate student for 2025. Other times I usually write prospective student interested in, then I will indicate the research interest. So mine was total synthesis of natural products. So I will indicate that in the code email.
Perfect. Our non-STEM major will be Jane.
Okay, so I think in addition to all what Esther mentioned was what I did. The difference for me was just adding research questions. So I got to learn from a current PhD student that adding research questions stands you out. And since I started practicing it, a lot of PI started replying back. So add between 2 to 3 research questions. Now gives the PI or the faculty member an insight into what you're actually trying to research on. And the moment they notice the question aligns with what they are currently doing, they will reply and call for a meeting. I remember the particular school I applied for, and the PI was on break during the December period. And because of I added that question, she told me in January that it was that question that attracted her to have the call with me. And then we had longer discussion. So I added research question between 2 to 3 or 3 to 5, depending. But normally I advise 2 to 3 questions so that it will be brief, concise, and not increase the email length.
Makes a lot of sense for me. That's actually for me take home as well. Adding research questions, and typically that is a youth thing. Nobody can help you with your research questions. Is your research, is your interest. So you are the one that would need to develop your research questions. I talk with, I know what this journey, graduate school journey, I said every day, is not a jackpot journey. It's a journey for people that are really ready to go through graduate school program, because it just is the beginning of you knowing that is an individual race, because you're going to go to graduate school on your own. The race is your race. The research program is your journey, and you don't drag anybody along in that PhD journey. So it's very, very important to put that back of our minds. We already talked about subject line. Esther kind of emphasized that as much as possible. But I want to ask a question. How long did you guys have to wait before you followed up, And when did you know, at what point did you know that you have to move on? Like, oh, you know what? Yes, I followed up with this PI. He's not responding. Okay, it's time for me to move on. At what point did you know that?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Esther.
Esther, go.
all right. Thank you, Basanju. So for me, most of the PIs I contacted, most of them usually respond almost immediately. But for those I have to wait, I usually wait for like a month before I send a follow-up email. So after a month, if they don't reply, I will then send a follow-up email. Some of them, even after the follow-up email, they still will not respond. So I just ignore them and just proceed with other people. Yeah.
That's good to know. You need to move on. Yep. OBJ.
Okay. So for me, it's between 2 weeks to a month. Usually when I send an email, and a lot of them did not reply instantly, I had to send just a brief follow-up email along the same email thread to call their attention to it within 2 weeks or a month. Some of them finally reached out and said, you know what, we are not allowed to discuss with you. Just apply to the school. Some will tell you they are not looking for students presently. But a lot of time after the follow-up email, if they don't respond, I actually just move on and look for it. Because so the idea is you might see 2 or 3 faculty members whose research interests aligns with yours. So you still have other options. So once I send the first follow-up email and there's no follow-up, sometimes I don't send the second follow-up because I assume sometimes that they might not be interested or they might be busy. And that means I should just move on. After 2 weeks, I send to a new faculty member in that same faculty and expect positive response.
All right, so would you guys be willing to share like an average of like how many cold emails you sent out during this process? Like, is an estimate. I don't need an exact number. And what is the percentage of the response that you got? Like me, for example, I cold email like 50 professors, but only got a response from 5. Or I cold email 40 professors and I got a response from 20. How would you put that statistics if I ask either Esther or BJ, like, what was that for you?
Okay, so for me, I reached out to 21 professors. So I had to check this morning to see the number of professors I reached out to. I reached out to 21 and 10 actually responded. 10 responded and 11 did not. So for the 10 that responded, about 8 of them just gave me the generic response where we just apply to our graduate program. Some of them will tell me that their school policy doesn't allow them to talk to prospective students, that will have to go through the graduate school after I'm accepted into the program before we can start talking about my interests and joining their labs. Yeah, so I think I got 50% success rate. We like all that success since, yeah, so I think 10 responded. Then it was two professors. I got 2 positive response from 2 professors. So from the 2 professors that responded, I just got an offer from just one of them. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That makes so much sense. Obi?
Okay, so for mine, I wrote to over 30 faculty members. I got over 50% response rate and met with about 5 of them via Zoom call. And in which one of the ones I met with is the school I'm finally going to be attending in August. So yes, I 50% success rate. Calls happened, and a lot of them, like what Esther mentioned, did mention and say their policy doesn't allow interactions. While some, I had a particular one from Penn State University, who our response was just basically, what is your interest in, what is your strength in teaching? And I should go to their website to research on the courses I could teach and get back to her. And I went back, looked deep again, listed the courses I could teach, why I could take those courses. and how I could impact knowledge in those courses. I went back. I finally got admission into it too, but not going to that school. So that was for me 50% out of 30.
Obij, I'm going to stay with you because my next question was actually going to talk about, the interaction with a PI influence admission and funding. And in your own case, I would say yes. But did you by any chance, did you guys interact through Zoom? Were you given assignments to do or maybe a research paper to work on to get back to them? I know some grad students actually go through that process of, okay, reach out to me, okay, here is this paper, work on it and come to a presentation. I just want you to share your experience with that interaction with the PI.
Okay. Yes. So So like I said, I met with five faculty members who jumped on Zoom calls with me, or even above five, and they were really interested in it. We had about 30 minutes to 1 hour call, and during those interactions, they were interested in seeing how we aligned in our research. So they asked you questions. For my field, it was not that technical, but they wanted to know, do I have the field experience as someone coming to teacher education? Have I taught before? Do I have the right certificates? What is my passion for going into teacher education, which is not really a field a lot of people still research on, considering a lot of training tools that are available and all that. So some that gave me work, yes, two gave me work. One was the one I've mentioned, who actually told me to go to the school. We did not actually have a call. She just responded and say she was not interested in research assistant. She was looking for a teaching assistant and wanted to know if I could take those courses and I should go back to the school website for the undergraduate, check them and respond to which I could take, and which I did that. And she responded that she will be looking out for my application when I finally submit. Then the other PI that also went far to give me something to do, she sent me 10 research papers that were current on that topic and that I should use that to write my proposal for submission. So she noticed I have good interest, but the papers I was citing were not updated. So she sent me mostly 2024 papers and told me I should use that, get knowledge from these papers, and use that to write my research proposal, which I finally submitted for the admission. And she was really interested because we have over an hour call with her, and she was really, really interested in my work.
I'm very excited to hear that you actually wrote a research proposal. Yeah, because a lot of the US graduates just feel that, oh, you know what, it's the UK thing. I'm like, no, some US schools actually, some professors actually would ask you to do that. And it's actually very important that, when we get to this stage, you need to, when I talk about you're a scholar, it would be sad if you interact with a professor or PIs with an S. And at the end of the day, going there interacting with you, they're picking your brain and you're not able to get through any of those. One of my students actually this was saying to me that, oh, she did 7 interviews and none of them picked her. I was really disappointed because I felt so upset with her. And I said to her that, you know what, for you to do 7 interviews and nobody picked you, then there's something wrong with your brain. And with all due respect, there's just something wrong with you somewhere. It only simply means that whatever you're putting on your resume, you're not able to defend it, or you don't know it, or you don't have the technical skills to be able to defend whatever you claim that you know. So yeah, it's just quite interesting. So for me, I tell people that when the PIs are interacting with you, is to check you out and know, what do you have to offer, what can you bring to the table, and also check this thing upstairs. You need to check it, be sure that it's very important. All right, let's divert a little bit. We have Godfrey in the house. Godfrey was one person that did not reach out to PIs, and I had to really find an example of him because I know some of us get very discouraged after we reach out to PIs, and the PIs are not getting back to us. What what do we do? So I'm going to allow Godfrey talk this time around just to, explain to the house, how did he even decide not to apply, reach out to any PIs? What made him come to that conclusion? And now he's applied to school, he's going to school, he's fully funded. So, Godfrey, over to you. Mr. Godfrey.
Okay, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think the first question was why did I decide not to reach out to PI? Okay, so personally, sometimes I've heard from a lot of these people that if you reach out to some PIs, a lot of them will not get back to you. And I was part of a mentorship group that encouraged us to reach out to PI. And I actually learned how to do that. It's not like I did not learn it. Yes, I learned it, but I did it in a very different way. So you're supposed to go through their research papers, know what they do. Then when you are composing your mail, you're supposed to now include it that, oh, I've seen your paper on this and I was interested in it, just to get their attention, to get that punchline so that they want to say, okay, this person is interested in me. Let me take my time to read their mail. Okay, I learned that part. So what I did was in my SOP, instead of just sending them mail, I indicated them in my SOP and included those lines in my SOP. And that's what I did.
Makes so much sense. Well, that makes sense. So us being very specific, in when we're applying to school, and we actually talk about that when you're applying to school, when you're writing those SOPs, your SOPs actually need to be very specific to the school. And when I also read SOPs too, I tell people that, you know what, how does this SOP, like your SOP should be an SOP that when I remove everything, I should know that this SOP is for University of, like maybe Cornell University or for University of Michigan, or this SOP is for University of Kentucky. Like you're so specific that by the time you read it, especially the concluding part of those your SOP should really show that, oh yeah, this person knows our school. You know the professor, you talked about the people, you talked about the program. Like even if you're like for me that I'm a very sports person, check what is their whatever their sports chant, there's some connection you give to people when you just you go just off a little bit of academic and just talk about even the school color. Wow, purple, my very favorite color, like things like that, or the ram, like their mascots, talking about the mascot, it just shows how very specific, that SOPs for that institution. But a lot of us we write SOPs that we just remove professor name and add another professor inside. I'm very, very willing to come to your prestigious institution. What's prestigious? For me, I feel that's so patronizing. And I hear that every day. So thank you, Godfrey, for sharing that. Do you have any other thing to add? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so what I would like to add is most of the professors that I indicated in the SOP, they actually reached out to me later, but this was when the department has already reviewed my application and said, oh, this person has the potential to be here. So, for example, I actually got 7 offers in total, and most of the schools I gave fully funded. The professors that I identified in my SOP, they reached out to me and scheduled like an interview. So I think indirectly, that's what you get when you do code mail, where they want to talk to you. But this time, they've already considered you. They just want to finalize their decision. So for some schools, the professor will reach out to you and just say, okay, this is, in fact, some of them will call it an informal meeting and say they just want to know your motivation, why you decided to go for this, why you decided to go for that. Do you need any more information? And most times when you just finish that interview, in a couple of days, you get your offer. So that's how it works for me.
All right. So in conclusion, before we take questions from people, please put your question in the Q&A, and we have like other advisors here, myself and our graduate students who are here to answer your question. But before we go into a Q&A for everyone, looking at time, Esther and Obasanjo, please, by any chance, did you guys meet any of your PIs through webinars or virtual talk, or like maybe a meeting, like an open meeting? Did you have that? Were you opportune to maybe a school's webinar you joined, and that was when you met the PI? Did you have any of that experience?
No, ma, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, no. All my PIs was through the cold emails I sent.
Okay.
I just attended sessions and learned from how to write those emails, and also who to contact in the school when I attend the virtual sessions.
Okay, cool. So final questions for all the three of you. Like, when you reach out to PIs and PIs are calling you in for meetings or for interviews, how would you tell people to prepare for those kind of opportunities? So you reach out to PI says to you, fine, I'm going to have a 20-minute Zoom meeting with you. What would be your advice on how to prepare for those type of Zoom meetings with a PI? Godfrey, you want to go?
Okay. So for me, when some schools reached out to me, some of them will specifically ask you to prepare slide or what they are expecting from you. Some say, okay, prepare 3 slides, like just so that you can tell us your research or your background and what you are interested in. So you can make your slide as detailed, not so detailed, but something that will guide you in your presentation. Then after that, they are going to ask questions regarding what you just presented. And one thing that is going to really help you is to have a good motivation for the program you are going for, because they will definitely ask you what's your motivation, why did you choose to do this. Another thing, they will ask you if you have experience with teaching, because since you may be taking that's the position of TARA, so they will definitely ask you if you have that experience. Another thing is you have to know your project, your undergraduate project. I think that one is very important because they will definitely ask you, what is your undergraduate project? For me, when I did my own presentation, they asked questions that I wasn't even expecting, like, how did you get this? How did you get these results, this particular result? What did you do? So if you actually did the experiment yourself, you're not going to have problem with that. Sometimes it may have been like in 2 years that you did that experiment. So you have to actually go over your project again so that you remember everything. So in preparing for that one, you have to know the motivation for your program. You have to go through your project. That's the recent project you just did or your undergraduate project. Then you have to prepare a very good slide, a compelling slide that will actually catch their attention and be ready to answer any questions that they throw your way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
So yeah,
so for
okay.
me, I would say that anybody preparing to have a meeting with any PI should know everything in his CV. Just ensure that anything you state in your CV, you should be familiar with them because they can ask you questions from anywhere. And also, you should be ready to explain your motivation for the program you are going into. Yeah, you should explain it clearly to them. Like the interview I had, it was very informal. I asked about what I was doing, the research I have conducted, and most of the things I said in my CV. He was very interested in knowing more about them. And also I have a lot of teaching experience. So he asked questions around the teaching experience I had because he also wants me to be his teaching assistant, to be a teaching assistant in the department. Yeah, so basically just know everything in your CV and just be prepared. Most of the meetings are informal meetings. It's just what you know. You just ensure you know everything in your CV. Yeah.
Thank you, OB.
Okay, so once again, I was saying my own experience is quite different.
Because you're
So
non-STEM major.
yeah, yes. Yeah, so when I was doing presentation, I was like, okay, presentations. Okay, so for my faculty, it was just an informal chat, 1 hour informal chat, 30 minutes. And particularly what I did before the interview was to read about the professor, everything I could know about the school, the course. But particularly, I picked one paper of the PI that aligns with my research interest. So sometimes they will advise we should pick a recent paper, but for my own period, a lot of these PIs do different work, and sometimes I pick the one most relevant to me, but not obsolete. So within the last 3 to 5 years. So I picked that one that aligns with teacher education and study that paper back to back. Now, when I get to that interview, it starts informal and I connect all my research with the results or research from that particular paper to show knowledge of the PI's work. And I also find draft questions. I ask the PI about that paper. Okay, why did you do this? What if we have done this? Would the result have been different? What if we have looked at quantitative measures? Because in education, we normally use qualitative research. But what if we have done quantitative research? Will this have worked better? And this has actually worked for me in all the interviews I attended. It brought a lot of them closer to me, and we even had email threads severally communicating. Then, just like what Esther mentioned, most were informal. I know the school I'm going to, the first PI I met in that school, we went as far as talking about her father, where her father grew up and everything. She was telling me, oh, from Morocco, this particular place. I was like, oh, I'm schooling there currently. And this actually helped us bond better. So most times it's informal. If you can find somewhere to bond, it helps a lot. But also identifying a research paper that the PI knows you have done your homework, because a lot of time they want to see that research part that you could go the extra mile to learn about their work, and also ask technical questions that could help improve their research or even give them ideas for further research.
Thank you so much. So now, guys, let's just see questions from the people.